So today what we're going to be looking at is we're going to be looking at two different things with Doors and Windows that we've had some questions about this week, and then we're going to look at Keynotes, and more specifically we're going to be looking at working with CSV file Keynote databases and what you can do with them when they are either linked or imported, how you can maintain the order that you want, how you can reorder, and that sort of thing. That's the main thing we'll be covering today. All right, it looks like everyone who is going to join has done already. So welcome to the CI Tools weekly webinar. My name is Josh Osborne and I'm the product manager for the CI Tools here at Central Innovation. And this is our weekly webinar where I go through some frequently or recently asked questions about the CI Tools, just to give you an idea of how to do certain things in the tools. The way that I figure out what I'm going to cover in these sessions is based on common support tickets that we get or people asking what we can cover during these sessions. So if you do have any queries about the CI tools that you'd like to see a sort of a how-to guide on or something like that, please let us know just via a support ticket anytime, and that will filter its way through to me so that I can cover it in a future version of one of these webinars. So as I mentioned, today we're going to be looking at some things to do with the Doors and Windows tool, and then also some things to do with the Keynotes tools. But if you do have any other questions that you think of as we go, or anything that you just wanted to get answered that's not necessarily related to what we're talking about today, just enter those in the questions panel as we go, and I'll try to answer those either as we go, or I'll follow up with you after the session so that we can sort it out. I'm going to be working in ArcCAD 25 today. Most, if not all, I think everything that we're going to cover today will also apply in ArcCAD 24 and 23 as well. So if you're using older versions, what you're going to see here today will look familiar in the version that you're using as well. So the first thing I wanted to start with was two things to do with the CI tools, Doors and Windows tools. The first one was someone asking about how to structure a certain window or door that they wanted. And so what I'm going to do is just give you a brief overview of why you would want to use the two different types of doors that we have available, using an example of a door that has louvers running next to it. So we're going to use that as an example, but this will apply in many different cases. And essentially, as you might know, the door tool has two different objects available in it, the CI Tools door and the CI Tools door exterior. And the two options are there for doing specific different kinds of things. The general rule is that the CI Tools door is what you should use for most internal doors, in fact, probably all internal doors, and most exterior doors which mainly just feature a door, if that makes sense, whereas the CI Tools door exterior is designed to do door units that have large amounts of glazing in them as well. So it incorporates most of the features of the window tool inside the door so that you can have more control over specifically how the glazed parts of the door will work. And so one of the things that came in this week was someone had drawn up a door using the door tool and then had added a side light. So we can just, oops, I need to set a size for my side lights so that we can see some there. And then I'll set the side lights to use louvers. So you can see it's put the door in, and then I've got a side light there showing my glass louvers. And then we'll also just set the door to have some glass in it as well. Looks like I've got some strange default settings here, but let's make that a bit wider so we can see what's going on. Whoops, excuse me, I hit enter as I was doing that. Oh, someone's saying they can't hear anything. Okay. Is anyone able to hear me at the moment? Could you just pop a question in if you can hear me? You can. Okay, so in that case, the person who just said that you can't hear, possibly if you go into the GoToWebinar settings and look at the audio settings there, it might be that you have it set to use your headphones maybe, or that your speakers are turned off or the volume's just turned down too far. Have a look in there and see if you can adjust that, and that will make it come through or not. But it looks like it's working for most people. So excuse me, I'm just trying to type out the same thing that I just said just a second. All right. Hopefully that will get you up and running shortly. But if not, you can always view the recording of this later on, and you will be able to hear the audio there, hopefully. Excellent. It's working for you now. Great. So yes, going back to this door. So I've got something sensible showing there now. Let's make my side light not so enormous. So we set the side light to have louvers, and we will set the door leaf to have something with glass in it. So the problem that happens here is that you've got a door leaf that has glass showing in it, and you've got louvers that also have glass showing in them. If you don't want the louvers here to be showing with glass, so you want them to be wood or some other material, the only thing that you can do to change what they look like is by changing what the glass setting for this door is. So if I go to my surfaces, you can come in here and say, let's say that we wanted to use, so I'll just get my GoToWebinar out of the way. We wanted to use one of the wood ones. It'll go ahead and set all my louvers to wood, but it will also set the door panel to be wood as well, which is probably not what you wanted. So in this case, using the door exterior tool would be a good option because it will allow you to set the surfaces on each individual glazing item, essentially. Sorry, someone, if whoever it is that has their hand up on GoToWebinar, just let me know in the questions panel if you're having a problem with something, and I'll try to help as we go. So yes, so using the door exterior, sorry, I'm having a little bit of trouble with the webinar this morning by the sounds, but okay, no, it's all right. So the door exterior, so the advantage that we have here in terms of what we're looking at is that we can set those surfaces independently. So at the moment, I've got a single element here, which is a door. I'm just going to go in and add another one. So we have two doors. And then we can set one of those to be louvers. It's on the other side, obviously, but it's roughly the same setup. So we've got glass showing in our louver and in our door. But using the door exterior tool, if you go to the sorry, if you go to the glazing panel surfaces button here, so this is where you set out your glazing, and then going to here, you'll get a very similar looking display. So you can see what you have made your window or door out of, but you can select a panel and set custom overrides here essentially. So you can see that everything is set to the default at the moment, but we can now go through and we can say, well, the glass on these louvers should actually be wood, and they will change to that, but the door, because it's a separate item here, is still set to be glass, and you could change that to a different kind of glass if you wanted or something like that. But because they're all independent units inside this element, this is a good way to deal with that sort of thing if you have multiple different kinds of glass, or any other thing for that matter. If you have doors with multiple panels and you want the panels to be differently surfaced, using the exterior door will allow you to do that as well, because you can just set each one up as a different glazing unit here, and then go through and apply whichever settings you need here as well. And it applies to the glazing bars too. If you are using those, you can set those here as well. So that's a good thing that you can use the exterior door for. And again, it just mostly, if you are thinking in your mind when you're trying to draw something up, what would be the best thing to use for what I'm doing, unless you are drawing a door that has a large amount of glazing in it, or something slightly unusual for the glazing in it, then the CI Tools door is the one to use. But then as soon as you do have anything with extra amounts of glazing that you need to handle, the door exterior is the best choice for those in most cases. All right, the second question that I had to do was to do with doors and windows as well, and that was to do with showing the opening lines on your schedules. So in the door and window schedule, as you probably know by default, we show opening lines on all of the doors and windows, but you can control these on a per element basis if you want to. So if you go into the model view options, you can see here, oh, that's the plan view label, sorry. Excuse me. The detail level, I think. Yes, here. So you can control how much detail is shown with the doors and windows here, but these can be overridden with each door. So at the moment, they're all showing by the default setting. So let's just focus on D001 here. So you can see, hopefully, that I've got some dashed lines showing the opening direction here. If, for example, you wanted those to not show, or you just want to override the ones that are showing there, you can do that by just selecting the door that you want to modify, going into the settings, and then going to this model display section here. So it's under display options, model display, and you can see that most of these settings are grayed out at the moment, and that's because it is being overridden by model view options. But if you want to apply a sort of a local setting, you can change to use local settings here, and then these will all ungray, and you can do whatever you like with them. So you could override the pen that is drawn on those, or you can turn them off or on. So you have controls to show them on or off in your 3D views and schedule. The 3D and schedule views share the same setting, the section elevation and the 3D documents. So that you can have them all showing differently in those three types of views, if you like. So at the moment, now that I've gone to local settings, I've got show and schedule turned off. So if I hit OK and then update that schedule, they will disappear from that door element, but they will stay on all of the others because they're still being controlled by the main settings, not local settings. So you can see D001, now that it's rebuilt, no longer has opening lines on it, but all of my other doors and windows in here are showing the opening lines. So you can control those at a granular level if you want. And of course, it works the other way as well. If you have it set to not show anywhere, you can also override it to make it only show on certain doors and windows if you want to as well. So that's the, open those settings again. That's the model display area under the display options there. And you can choose use model view options or use local settings. All right, so the next thing I wanted to look at was with the Keynotes tool. And this is a thing that I've had a handful of questions over the last couple of weeks about, and it's to do with how you import and link your notes. So as you might know, the Keynotes tool will allow you to import your notes from an external file, almost always a CSV. And you have two options. You can either import those or you can link those. Now, the difference between importing and linking, when you import notes, you essentially are bringing the notes from that CSV into your ArchiCAD project, and they now live in your ArchiCAD project. You can continue to modify them as you go, and this is sort of the central database for them now. Whereas if you choose to link them, so that's using the link button as opposed to the import button when you bring them in, those will come into your ArchiCAD project and they will all be grayed out here. So you'll still get all of the data come through, but you can't modify them in here anymore because we are now treating that CSV that we've linked to as the sort of main document for all of your notes. So you can use those two methods to bring them in, but you will still generally, I would say in most cases, the application that you got them from in the first place. So if you use some sort of program or maybe a website or something like that that stores your notes, that's how you're getting your CSV file. You will occasionally want to modify the way that CSV file is set up, or the notes that are in it, to make it work in different ways. And there's a couple of different things that you can do with the Keynote database to make it support those ways that you want to do that better. So what I'm going to do, just to start with, is I'm just going to remove all the notes that I have here. So I'll say, yes, I want to continue. And I'm going to make a new example notes set. So I've got these 4 notes here. I'm going to export them to a CSV file so that I have a file to experiment on for now. Okay, and now I'll remove them from here and link them so that we now have a live CSV link so that you can see what we're going to do as we go now. So I'll choose to link that file in, set up the mapping here. So it's already picked up everything automatically. So I'm just going to hit OK. And that will bring through a linked set of these notes. So you can see I can select them now and they're grayed out. So they're linked with that CSV. And now anything that we do to the CSV will flow through to the ArchiCAD project. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to open up one of those. Test 2, I think it was called. Yep. Okay, so this is what the file that you exported will look like if you exported it from ArchiCAD. If you exported it from something else, it will look like whatever else it looked like there. And you can see the different fields that we have going on here by default. So we've got GUIDs. So this is a globally unique ID. That's what GUID stands for. And essentially, this is just a way of the Keynotes tool knowing that this is this specific note and not something else, so that if you change every other part of it, it will still know that it is this note. Then we've got the components of the note itself, so the key, title, description, and spec ref. We've got a last edit time, which tells it when this field was last modified so that it knows when it needs to do an update, and the category, which is shown in ArchiCAD as the folder. So this is how it's set up by default, and you can now go through, now that this is our master document, the CSV file, we can now go through and we can make changes to this. So I can go to one of my notes here and change part of it, and then save that CSV. And then back in ArchiCAD, I can update, and you'll see that when I do that, it will bring up the review telling me that something has changed, and it's saying, it shows as orange at the moment because it is saying that the note that was called 1 untitled has been changed. And I can now click OK, and you'll see that 1 is now called number 1 as we told it to do. So that's working roughly as you would expect. If you've worked with these before, you'll probably know that the problem that you may get to, though, is that if you want to add extra notes, it gets a little bit confused. So let's add a 4 and a 5. Just give them some titles here so that we can see that easily enough. So I'll add a 4 and a 5 and just leave everything else off for now. Save that CSV, and then we'll update again. So that will bring through 4 and 5. It knows those are nice new notes. However, because the 4 and 5 were created in the CSV and they don't have GUIDs on them, Keynotes is not able to track what changes are being made to these properly. So if I come in here and I change 5 to 7, say, so we have updated the key of this note, and I hit update, you'll see that rather than getting the orange updated notification, what we see instead is that 5 is red, which means that it's gone now, and 7 is blue, which means it's new. So it wasn't, because there was no GUID attached to that note, it wasn't able to tell that there was a change to an existing note. It sees it as 5 having been deleted and 7 having been created. So if I hit OK now, 5 will change to 7, but if we had any notes placed that were using 5, those are now orphaned notes, which is to say notes that have no, labels that have no note in the database anymore. So if I go through and I place down 4 here, for instance, I can go through and change 4, save it and update. You'll see again it has deleted 4 and created a new 8. And now, if I audit, you'll see that the auditor sees this as essentially a non-existent note anymore, because it sees the 4 that we placed as being gone from your database now. So if you hit repair, it'll just disappear. Obviously not what we want. And so the way that I would recommend that you work around this is simply by adding a GUID to all of your notes. What you can do is actually just generate a large amount of GUIDs, say for instance the maximum amount you think you would ever get to, paste it into your database, and then that will let you freely add and remove notes to your database without having to worry about this issue where things go missing. So you can just open up your browser and search for GUID generator, and there's one on the first hit, usually, at least for me, on the first hit, called GUIDgenerator.com, which I have found gives a very good result. So we can come in here, and let's just look back at what my GUIDs look like. All right, so we've got uppercase letters, we've got numbers, and we have hyphens showing in there. So back in the generator here, we've got uppercase and we've got hyphens, and let's generate 99 GUIDs. So you can see it goes through and just generates a big list of these GUIDs, and we can now just copy and paste that list of GUIDs and dump them into our spreadsheet. So you can see I now have GUIDs assigned to these 2 new notes that I added earlier, and then I have a whole bunch more GUIDs here that are blank at the moment. So I'm just going to save that CSV and update again in ArchiCAD. So you'll see that it sees those as having been removed and added again, because we have assigned GUIDs to labels that were already there. So again, because they weren't there to begin with, it doesn't know what to do with them. So it's treating them as if they're new again. That's fine. We'll just hit OK. And you can see now we still have the same amount as before. So it hasn't imported those extra 99 GUIDs because there's no data associated with them. So it can't do that. So you can happily have a CSV file with a hodgillion GUIDs sitting there that are blank, and you can still import and update and link your CSV file, and you won't get all of those come through. You'll only get them come through when you need them to. So now that we have GUIDs assigned to them, we can go through and we can make changes to those notes. So we can update 7 to be 9 now, for instance. Save that change and update. And you'll see that we get some nice orange notes now telling us that the existing note that was already there has been updated to have a different key now. So you can see that 7 has now become 9, which is what I wanted it to do. So this is a good way if you are working with CSV notes, whether they are imported notes or they are linked notes, having a bunch of these sort of blank GUIDs that you generate sitting there in your project, in your CSV, is a good way to work with this. So essentially at the start of the process with your CSV, I would just dump in a big pile of these GUIDs here and then save that as your CSV. And then as you add more notes in your external application, whatever it is, they will automatically tie themselves to the GUIDs that you already had placed. Obviously, if you're working on multiple different CSVs, you will need to regenerate a new list of GUIDs for each different CSV. If you have multiples, if you use the same list of CSVs of GUIDs in all of your CSVs, that's going to very much confuse the Keynotes tool because it will be seeing the same note coming in from 2 different sources, and you'll just get an error saying that this note already exists. So if this is a way that you are working using external applications, or if you just prefer to edit your notes inside Excel, this is a good way to do that. It also means that, as you saw before, we were able to essentially renumber our list. And because they are still associated with their GUIDs, that renumbering doesn't mess up anything here apart from changing the order. So as you saw before, we changed 8 and 9. So 7 used to be above. 7 used to be below, but it was showing as above, and we've changed that to 9. So we were able to essentially renumber this database on the fly, and then when we updated back in ArchiCAD, it brought through that change as you would want it to. One thing also, while I'm on this note, as you can see, when I've been darting between ArchiCAD and Excel, you need to make sure, if you are doing this, that when you are done with your edits in Excel, you need to close the CSV file. If you leave Excel open, it won't let ArchiCAD access the CSV file anymore. So when you try to update, so if you go through here and change something and save it, if you go back to ArchiCAD and hit update, it will just say that it can't get the file anymore. And the reason for that is because Excel has locked it. So we'll just hit cancel there. We'll close that and then hit update, and it will bring through that change that we just made. So it's a renumbered 9 to 11 now, and then you can keep going as you wanted to. So that's just something to bear in mind if you are working this way. But hopefully that makes sense from the point of view of editing those notes. Just, I would go through and attach GUIDs to everything using one of those online generators. You can use anything. This is the first hit on Google, and it gives me exactly what I wanted. But if you have something else, you can obviously use that instead. But once you have GUIDs attached to everything, that's the best way to go when you are working with external CSVs, I would say. So I hope that made sense. If you have any questions, though, enter those in the questions panel, and I'll see if I can help with those before we finish up. I'll just have a look at what we've got now. Yeah, so the door exterior tool, a lot of people already do use the window tool to do the types of doors that you can do with the door exterior tool. The reason that we made the door exterior tool is because a lot of people were doing that, but they wanted those doors that they made using the window tool to be scheduled as if they were doors. And so this is a way for that to work. Is essentially it just reproduces most of the functionality of the window tool inside the door tool. Are we working on plan views for the schedule to show direction of opening? So we don't show plan views in our schedule. So no, But if that's something that you would want the schedule to be able to do, I guess either showing a plan view instead of the elevation views that they normally do, or as well as, we may be able to do that. Yeah, I'd be interested to hear a bit more about how you'd want that to look, but we could look into that. Okay. I'll have a look and see if I can find that support ticket. Can you change the numbering within the Keynote palette as well? At the moment I'm using linked ones, so I can't modify those, but these ones here, you can go through and you can change the numbering there and it'll just shift them around if that's what you want to do. But if you want to sort of do a bulk renumbering of everything, no, you can't do that. Probably the best way to do that would be using the export to Excel and then bring it back thing. Yeah, possibly we could add a way to say reorder. Maybe you could select a set of keynotes or something and then say renumber these three or something like that. Yeah, I'll add it to our sort of new feature suggestion list and see if we can come up with a way that would make sense to be able to do that inside the palette. Obviously, it's only going to work on notes that are actually in the project. You can't renumber linked notes because you can't touch linked notes at all, except for to read them. But yeah, we might be able to add something there. If you wanted to add a keynote to a lower number, so like, what have we got a gap at? So if you wanted to add in 5 here or something. Yeah, it'll sort of let you do that. So you can renumber them that way, but of course it's not going to. I get the impression that you're wanting it to sort of fit notes into gaps that you had before, and that sort of, yeah. Instead of renumbering all the following numbers, yeah. So you kind of want to be able to drag and drop the ordering of them really, without having to renumber everything. Yeah, that is something that we can think about a bit and see if we can figure out a way to do that. Because yeah, at the moment, dragging and dropping in the Keynotes palette just doesn't do that. It will show you that as if it's going to do it, because it will allow you to drag and drop them between sources, and it will allow you to drag and drop them in the label contents. But it's not gonna renumber. So yeah, that's a good suggestion. I'll put that on our list definitely, and we'll see what we can do for that. What else have we got here? So can you show different detail settings of floor plan and roof plan for the same skylights? You can use model view options to do that, but that will only work if the model view options have the 2 different amounts of detail that you want to see. So this is the setting for those here. So if for your, what are we saying? So if for your roof plan, you could set them to full, and then for your floor plan, your lower floor plan, you could set them to low. Low 1 would probably give you almost no detail at all, and then save views of those. That should do what you want, I would say. But if those detail levels don't do the thing that you want, yeah, we would need to put in some sort of extra override controls if that doesn't do it for you. So in that case, I would want to find out specifically what detail, what way you want to modify how the detail levels work, because essentially we try to just match them to the detail levels that are built into ArchiCAD. which are these ones here. You can see the previews for the doors and the windows, but not skylights, but the skylights should look pretty similar as well. So we just try to match those, but if one of them doesn't do as much or as little detail as you want in a specific view, then there may be some way that we could override that. But if you haven't already, log a support ticket about that and maybe just give us like a drawing of how much detail you do want to see. We can see if we can figure out a way to make something that would work with that, but would still be able to be set differently in different views. Yeah. Cool. Well, thanks for your time, everyone. It looks like that is all the questions for now. I will be here again same time next week, and I'll get the recording up on my CI at some point shortly as well. But thanks for your time, and I'll catch you later.